All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're diving into an explainer that completely flips how we look at digestion. We're not just talking about biology here. We are talking about biological architecture. We're going to explore this totally fascinating concept of ecosystem engineering right inside your gut. So get ready to rethink basically everything you thought you knew, because we are going deep into the pure physical science of how your internal terrain actually works. So here's a question for you. Are live probiotics actually enough to fix a broken gut? For years, the health industry has totally sold us on this idea that fixing gut health is just about swallowing billions of live bacteria. But think about it. Would you take super expensive seeds, plant them in dry, depleted concrete, and expect a lush garden to grow? Well, of course not. The physical environment you plant them in matters just as much, if not way more, than the seeds themselves.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, rethinking the gut ecosystem. Second, the physical gut barrier. Third, phase 1, living elixir. Fourth, phase 2, complete fiber. And finally, combined structural synergy.
Starting with section 1, rethinking the gut ecosystem. I really want you to start picturing your digestive system less like a simple tube and way more like a massive landscaping project that needs some serious physical soil preparation. To actually grasp this approach, we've got to define what we mean by mechanical benefits. We're talking about real structural changes to your gut terrain. Things like hydrating your mucin layer or literally physically strengthening your tight junctions. These are direct physical reactions to very specific ingredients. So we are focusing heavily on the structural engineering side today, not just the microbial colonization part. And this is the massive paradigm shift we need to make today. Your gut is a physical terrain that desperately needs structural support. It is absolutely not just some sterile, empty vessel just waiting around for probiotics to show up. A thriving biological ecosystem demands physical architecture to survive. Without the right terrain, all those beneficial microbes you're trying so hard to cultivate, they're just going to wash right through you. And to actually engineer this biological ecosystem, we're looking at a two-phase toolkit from the GutBuddies system. Phase 1 is the living ferment elixir, and Phase 2 is the complete fiber. Put them together, and they're formulated to completely rebuild that gut landscape. Moving right along to Section 2, the physical gut barrier. Let's zoom way in on the microscopic anatomy of your intestinal wall and look at how we physically defend it. Now this is where the biological magic really happens. Your intestinal wall is, crazily enough, only one cell thick. Imagine trying to defend a fortress with a wall made out of wet tissue paper. To protect it, we need tight junction strengthening. Ingredients like pectin and butyrate actually upregulate these specific proteins called claudin, occludin, and ZO1. You can kind of think of these proteins as the biological mortar that physically seals up the tiny gaps between your gut cells, which reduces intestinal permeability. Next up is mucin layer support. Specific gel-forming fibers provide much-needed hydration for that protective slime coat, your mucin layer, and they stimulate a microbe called Akkermansia that helps maintain it. Finally, epithelial cell fuel. The cells that line your colon, the colonocytes, literally use butyrate for their primary energy source. If they don't get it, the wall weakens. We are directly feeding the structural wall itself. Okay. Here is a truly mind-blowing fact from the source data. These structural benefits happen completely independently of live microbiome activity. Let me repeat that. Independently. Things like forming protective gel barriers and dropping the luminal pH, that happens through pure, direct physical chemistry. These mechanical actions are going to happen regardless of whether you have a bunch of live bugs actively thriving in there or not. All right, Section 3, Phase 1, Living Elixir. Let's look at exactly how this first activation phase primes our biological soil. What's really fascinating here is that this elixir isn't just some sterile, isolated lab compound. It's actually a naturally fermented botanical tonic. It goes through this slow 5 to 9 day fermentation process where natural microbes break down a huge blend of vegetables and fruits. So what you end up with is this dense liquid that is absolutely packed with pre-digested plant compounds, naturally occurring enzymes, and an incredibly rich mix of microbial metabolites. The second this elixir enters your system, the mechanics kick in incredibly fast. The preformed organic acids immediately drop the pH level right there in the gut lumen. And why do we care? Well, because pathogens absolutely hate an acidic environment. By rapidly acidifying that area, you're creating a super hostile territory for the bad guys. It also delivers bacteria sins and cell fragments that immediately start priming your gut lining. This is step 1 in what scientists call competitive exclusion, literally pushing out the unwanted pathogens by instantly changing the physical terrain on them. That brings us to section 4, phase 2, complete fiber. Now that our internal soil is primed and activated, let's see how we build the physical structures right on top of it. Enter the complete fiber blend. If the elixir was out there prepping the job site, this powder is the truckload of essential construction materials. We are talking about providing the diverse substrates, the specific fibers, proteins, and plants that are needed to feed the ecosystem and keep that fermentation sustained over the long haul. The mechanics of these specific fibers are honestly amazing. First off, Chia and Psyllium form these highly viscous gels in your stomach, literally within minutes. This physically slows down the rate that food enters your small intestine, which naturally delays gastric emptying to help flatten out those post-meal blood sugar spikes. Then we've got Flaxseed, which creates a mucilage wall coating. It physically paints a temporary protective film over the intestinal wall to reduce irritation. Think of it like building a protective retaining wall. And finally, amaranth and potato give us resistant starch shielding. These RS2 granules are mechanically invisible to your upper digestion. They pass perfectly intact through the small intestine, dropping 0 glucose, just so they can become these powerful butyrate generators deep down in the colon. But wait, the mechanical actions do not stop there. Pomegranate husk and beetroot polyphenols do this thing called electrostatic pathogen blocking. They actually bind right to the surface proteins of pathogenic bacteria, so they literally cannot stick to your gut wall. Meanwhile, dietary nitrates in the beetroot powder convert into nitric oxide, causing direct vasodilation or relaxing of your blood vessels. And of course, insoluble fibers from split peas and chickpeas absorb huge amounts of water for stool bulking. I know, not the most glamorous topic, but absolutely crucial for your day-to-day comfort. So, what does all this dense science actually mean for you? Well, it translates to real-world observable signs. Things like much more predictable bowel timing and noticeably less sluggishness after you eat. Let's move to section 5, combined structural synergy, and see what happens when we put these two powerful faces together. We can literally map the exact physical journey of these ingredients right down your digestive tract. Step 1. Up in the stomach and early lumen, the elixir gives us that immediate rapid pH drop and delivers those active metabolites. Step 2. Moving down into the small intestine, the chia, psyllium, and flaxseed form that viscous barrier, delaying the glucose and coating the walls. Step 3. All the way down in the distal colon, those resistant starches and diverse fibers step up to power massive butyrate production and optimal stool bulking. So the crucial takeaway here is that this two-part system creates a continuous mechanical and biochemical gradient from the very top of your digestive tract all the way to the bottom. You've got the fast-acting elixir giving you that immediate chemical and barrier priming, paired perfectly with the fiber which provides the long-term structural effects. As the sources point out, single-product approaches simply cannot achieve this kind of complete, full-tract synergy. It really all boils down to this incredibly effective biological methodology. First, you prime the terrain with rapid acidification and living metabolites. Second, you build the physical structure with protective mucilage and gel-forming fibers. And third, you sustain the ecosystem by constantly feeding those tight junction-sealing colonocytes. We've covered some pretty advanced biological terrain today. You've seen the clear evidence that true gut health is about so much more than just dropping live bugs into your system. It's about physical, mechanical engineering and giving your body the structural support it desperately needs. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Knowing your gut is a physical terrain, what structural changes will you engineer today? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer and keep building that healthy foundation.